Hello fellow gardeners, and welcome back to Smart Garden. Today we're diving deep into one of the most hotly debated topics in the gardening community. Can you successfully grow peppers using nothing but compost? No soil, no added fertilizers, just pure, beautiful compost. It's a question that sparks passionate discussions at garden clubs and online forums alike, and today we're going to explore whether this method is a genuine game changer or simply another gardening myth that sounds too good to be true. The Great Compost Conundrum. The obsession with compost-only growing isn't hard to understand. Compost represents the ultimate closed-loop gardening system, transforming kitchen scraps and yard waste into black gold that could potentially eliminate the need for store-bought fertilizers and manufactured growing media. For environmentally conscious gardeners, the appeal is undeniable. Why purchase bags of potting mix when your compost bin might contain everything your plants need? The promise is tantalizing, a sustainable, cost-effective method that aligns perfectly with organic gardening principles while reducing waste and carbon footprint. But here's where things get interesting. Peppers are notoriously demanding plants with specific nutritional requirements throughout their growing season. They need balanced nutrition during vegetative growth, then shift their preferences toward potassium and phosphorus during fruiting. This raises the critical question: can compost alone provide this dynamic nutritional profile, or are we setting ourselves up for disappointment? The stakes are genuinely high because if compost-only growing works, it could revolutionize how home gardeners approach pepper cultivation. If it fails, we need to understand why so gardeners can make informed decisions about their growing methods. The Soil Science Showdown. Understanding whether compost can sustain peppers requires examining what these plants actually need. Peppers demand nitrogen for leafy growth, phosphorus for root development and flowering, and potassium for fruit production and overall plant vigor. They also require secondary nutrients like calcium and magnesium, plus a suite of micronutrients including iron, manganese, and zinc. High-quality, fully finished compost is remarkably nutrient-dense, containing all these elements in varying concentrations depending on the source materials used in its creation. However, nutrient presence and nutrient availability are two entirely different concepts. Just because compost contains these elements doesn't guarantee that pepper roots can access them when needed. Nutrient availability depends heavily on the compost's decomposition status and microbial activity. Finished compost hosts thriving populations of beneficial bacteria and fungi that help break down organic matter and convert nutrients into plant-available forms. This living ecosystem within the compost can actively feed plants throughout the growing season, essentially creating a slow-release fertilizer effect that commercial products try to replicate. The pH factor cannot be overlooked when considering compost-only growing. Peppers thrive in slightly acidic to neutral soil with a pH range between 6.0 and 7.0. Most well-made compost naturally falls within this range, though it can vary based on input materials. Compost, made primarily from woody materials, might trend slightly acidic, while compost heavy in food scraps could lean more alkaline. This pH sweet spot is crucial because it directly affects nutrient solubility and availability. Outside the optimal range, even nutrient-rich compost becomes less effective as essential elements become chemically locked up and inaccessible to plant roots. Cultivation chronicles expected outcomes and benefits. When growing peppers in pure compost, early-stage development typically shows promising results. Seedlings and young transplants often exhibit vigorous growth with deep green foliage, suggesting adequate nitrogen availability. The rich organic matter provides excellent moisture retention while maintaining proper drainage, creating an ideal environment for tender root systems to establish themselves. This initial success creates optimism that carries gardeners through the early weeks of the growing season. Mid-season is where the compost-only method truly faces its test. As peppers transition from vegetative growth to flowering and fruiting, their nutritional demands, they shift dramatically. Plants grown in pure compost may continue thriving if the compost quality is exceptional, displaying healthy foliage, abundant flowers, and, developing fruits. However, some gardeners report observing signs of stress during this critical period, particularly yellowing lower leaves that might indicate nitrogen depletion, or blossom end rot suggesting calcium availability issues. Watering becomes increasingly important as containers filled with pure compost can dry out quickly during hot weather, yet they also retain moisture efficiently when properly managed. Comparing compost-only peppers to those grown in traditional soil mixes or commercial potting media reveals fascinating insights. Many gardeners report that their compost-grown plants match or even exceed the performance of conventionally grown counterparts, producing comparable, or, sometimes, even superior yields. The key differentiator appears to be compost quality rather than the method itself. Plants grown in premium, fully finished compost often develop robust root systems that completely fill their containers, indicating excellent growing conditions. The roots themselves tell a compelling story. Healthy white roots spreading throughout the medium suggest optimal nutrient uptake and soil structure. Yield analysis from compost-only growing frequently surprises skeptics. When the conditions are right, these plants can produce abundant harvests of full-sized, flavorful peppers that rival any traditional growing method. The flavor profile often receives particular praise, with many gardeners noting enhanced taste, complexity, and intensity in compost-grown fruits. This flavor advantage might result from the diverse micronutrient profile and beneficial microbial activity present in quality compost, factors that manufactured fertilizers struggle to replicate. So, the verdict: myth, reality, or something in between? Well, growing peppers solely in compost is definitively a garden reality, not a myth, but with some important caveats. Success hinges almost entirely on using high-quality, fully finished compost. This method represents a viable long-term strategy for gardeners who either produce excellent compost themselves or have access to reliable sources. However, it's not a universal solution that works under all circumstances with any compost. This method particularly shines for gardeners committed to fully organic practices, those seeking to maximize sustainability while minimizing external inputs, and anyone producing large quantities of high-quality compost. It's also ideal for raised bed gardeners who can fill beds entirely with finished compost, and for container growers willing to monitor their plants closely and supplement nutrients if needed. The approach works best when gardeners understand their compost's characteristics and can adjust their care practices accordingly. For optimal results, focus on compost quality above all else. Make sure your compost is completely decomposed, dark, crumbly, and earthy smelling with no recognizable original materials. It's important to monitor your pepper plants closely for any signs of nutrient deficiency, especially during the transition to flowering. Don't hesitate to provide supplemental liquid feeding if yellowing leaves or poor fruit set suggest nutritional gaps. Most importantly, maintain consistent watering since compost moisture dynamics are a bit different from traditional growing media. The compost-only method really proves that sometimes the old ways, working with natural decomposition and soil biology, can match or even exceed modern manufactured solutions. It's a testament to nature's ability to provide when we create the right conditions. If you found this investigation valuable, please subscribe to Smart Garden and hit that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into practical gardening techniques. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are curious about pushing the boundaries of sustainable growing methods. Let's keep exploring what's possible in our gardens together.